The money be found for UK prescription charges to be free?
Okay. This is because Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland are all going to have free prescription charges, and the British Medical Association says it's outdated, iniquitous and detrimental to the health of patients that it's not free everywhere. Andrew Mitchell.
Well, our health spokesman has made clear that we will look at this, but my own view is I think
Who's your health spokesman?
He's Andrew Lansbury.
Right, go on.
And you were
Just
testing me,
know.
weren't you?
No. Oh, I'm sure you know. I didn't suppose for a moment you wouldn't know who your health spokesman was. I just thought the general public might not know.
But I think that it is... We've got to be aware that if we stop the revenue of £400 million, which comes from prescription charges, then we must find that money from somewhere else for the health service. And maybe we can find a way of doing that. Maybe there are arguments that there might be a better way of doing it. But we'd still have to replace that £400 million. And my feeling is that the answer on prescription charges is to try and have a system where those who can't afford to pay don't have to pay, and that those who can afford to pay do, and those, for example, who have long-running illnesses or long-running needs for prescriptions can be looked after. But I worry a lot about removing that source of revenue for the health service. It will have to be found somewhere else.
Okay. Douglas Alexander, Scotland has this, Wales has it. Who's paying for this? Is England paying for all this?
Well, it's a choice that the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Assembly has made. Well, it comes out of the block grant that's paid to the Welsh Assembly to the Scottish Parliament. In England, about 89% of prescription are free at the moment. Gordon Brown said last year that he wanted to move over a number of years for those people with longer-term conditions to have free prescriptions. And he's also said that he wants to move more quickly on people who suffer from cancer and receive those drugs. So I think it is a route of travel, but maybe unusually, I find myself agreeing with Andrew. If we are going to take the money, about £500 million, that at the moment is raised by prescription charges and goes straight into the National Health Service, then we're going to have to find that money from somewhere else, given the level of demand in the health service. But this is something which the government is actively looking at.
The man up there in purple, yes.
£500 million sounds absolutely trivial compared to what we were just talking about. Couldn't we just print the money?
Toby Young?
He stole my thunder. I was going to make exactly the same point. Who's going to... I mean, apparently the way printing money is going to work is they're not going to literally print money and then put it into the economy. They're going to purchase assets and hope that the money they use to purchase those assets with then goes into the economy. But given the government's track record when it comes to purchasing assets, I mean, Gordon Brown sold Britain's gold reserves at the bottom of the market. I'm sure our friend in the city can confirm. Why not use that money they're printing to buy prescription drugs and give them to the people that need them?
Okay. One in the front there, you in the second row.
Somebody on Radio 4 today, I think he was from the BMA, suggested that maybe if everybody pays, say, £1.50 for their prescriptions, then that would probably make up the money lost from issuing free prescriptions.
So instead of £7 or so...
Yeah, well, it's going to go up to £7.20, I think,
yes,
as of
you have
April.
a standard... Shirley Williams.
I actually agree with that. I'm very struck by the fact that on this panel, the two people who've tried to give direct and rather honest answers, which aren't popular answers, happen to be the two MPs. They don't get much credit for trying to be honest, but they both said truthfully that if the £500 million is spent on free drugs across the front, then other things will have to be cut back on. And I must say, in all fairness to Gordon Brown, that he spent a great deal of money on the health service, and you must have seen it, I've seen it, that in the GP's waiting rooms and in the hospitals, there's a heck of a lot of new machinery that wasn't there before, and there's a lot of cleaning up and improvement in hospitals. OK, if you take the money away and spend it on prescriptions, then you won't have the money to spend on new medical machinery. Money isn't without any bill being at the end of the day. So let me say that I think the young lady is absolutely right. The right thing to do, I believe, is a small flat rate charge, and quite bluntly, when I see the amount of NHS drugs that are simply poured down the loo, or stuck into cupboards and left, or thrown out months later, maybe a £1.50 charge is quite a good idea of making people take their drugs a bit more seriously and treat them a bit more responsibly.
where does England stand when Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland are all getting them free?
Well, England should say. We're talking now about the possibility of bringing in a single small sum. I think we should say to them, think about it. Because where did the money come from? It mostly came from England. So
tell the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish they're going to have to pay the same?
No, you can't do that because they're devolved, as you know very well. When they say so, they're devolved. You can't do that. You get yourself shot if you do that in Wales. Come on.
So the problem with Shirley's quite seductive proposal is that you would still have to have a lot of exceptions because there would be people who needed prescriptions very regularly who you couldn't expect to pay even the £1 or £1.20 per time. I fully
accept that. That's
so I think that it is difficult to make that change.
The lady in green there.
Well, I agree with Shirley Williams as well, in so much as I think you should pay for things if you're able to pay for them, because why should we have everything for nothing all the time?
You mean pay full whack? You'd have a means test on drugs?
Well, I think the system at the moment whereby as you say, there's 89% of people actually pay. So I don't think you're actually putting people into hardship to pay for their prescriptions. And what I wouldn't like to see is I've had elderly parents who I would like to see more work for, say, carers or things like dementia. So I'm putting my personal perspective on it. But I'm happy to pay a prescription if I felt that other services, which are still unexplored and not supported as fully as they should be, are going to be carried on with. And if we can pay, why don't we pay? We pay for other things we want.
Germaine Greer.
My difficulty with this is that I think most people have far too much medication rather than too little. A lot of it is wasted. But in many cases, what you get, instead of treatment and a proper workup and a diagnosis, is a prescription. And you know perfectly well that it isn't what you want and it isn't what's going to work. We actually could do with more services and less medication. And there also should be some sort of discipline where instead of just wasting expensive medications, we return them to the surgery if we don't use them.
You, sir.
Why not substitute hotel charges in the hospitals? It's long overdue. We all have to eat, and the fact that we're in hospital doesn't entitle us to eat free.
Douglas Alexander.
Well, I think before we beat up on the health service, America's been in the news a lot this week. I spoke to one of my friends who lives in New York who was telling me that her brother-in-law's just lost his job. He is somebody who has a heart condition, and she said the top of his fridge looks like a pharmacy. Because he's lost his job, he's lost his health insurance, and that means he's lost access to all of those drugs. And in that sense, of course, we shouldn't waste NHS resources. Of course, people should turn up for their appointments. Of course, we should make sure that people don't waste the drugs. But I do think we have something incredibly special in Britain, which is the idea that we have an NHS free at the point of need. And if you do have the tragedy of losing your job in this recession, you don't think you're going to lose your health as well. I think we should be pretty proud of our National Health Service.
Yes.
Could I just pick up on Shirley Williams's point about the wastage in the health service? I've got nothing but praise for the National Health Service when I've ever had need of hospital treatment or doctor's surgery treatment. But I did go for a physiotherapy appointment a couple of years ago, and I was the only person who turned up that morning for an appointment. And she said, "I'm really pleased you've come. Nobody else has turned up." So I think we as patients have some responsibility for our National Health Service, and I really do think we should have a charge levied on us if we miss appointments.
If you miss things, right.